Well, the first thing that I had to overcome was my own guilt. Because when you spend so much time and money, in my case, taking out student loans, I came out of law school with a lot of debt. The notion that I wouldn't want to invest financially to recoup that, that initial investment was a struggle for me, especially growing up as a working class kid. I talk about the conversation I had with my mother where I was trying to break down how I wasn't passionate about my career and how I felt guilty talking to a woman who had sacrificed so much for me and probably never had the luxury of thinking about something as trivial as passion. So explaining that to a working class family, how you're going to walk away from a solid career and a solid income to, pursue what's deep in your heart. My parents didn't, but also it was part of the challenge was what else was I going to do? That's part, I describe myself as a box checker because that's how we teach kids. It's like there's a path, you pick a career when you're 7, you study that career in elementary school, you go to college, you get a major, and life choices are not that orderly. But that's how we train kids. And I was right on that path and I knew how to achieve. I knew how to get A's and how to get to the next level, but no one taught me how to dig deep inside my soul and figure out what I cared about. And we don't talk to kids about what they care about. We talk about what they should major in, what they should study. And those two things are very different. So part of the struggle was I had to relearn how to educate myself about who I was. School didn't teach me that. All those degrees, all those fancy schools didn't help me connect into who I needed to be as a person. So I had to rewind all that learning. I think the challenge is that education systems are developed for masses of teaching. But every kid is so different. And if you don't have the resources to individualize the educational curriculum, then you're really pushing kids through a funnel that may not fit them. And that's something that I worry about and see now in my girls. This notion that you're going to learn something that every kid is going to learn in the same way at the same time is disastrous, and it creates box checkers who then go on to careers that may not fulfill them, and then they're not good at it. So the tough part for me was relearning all, and figuring all that out on my own. And so I had to find people who could help me. I did what I called informational interviews. I had to go out and just meet people who were doing all sorts of things that seemed interesting to figure out what I cared about. Was it kids? Was it working with kids? Was it mentoring? Was it education? I didn't know. I hadn't explored it because I was on the path to be a lawyer. So that was the hardest thing for me to understand how to do, is to walk away from the formal training that I had gotten and to swerve into something more creative.
And so would your advice be to others, it is important to find your passion?
It is absolutely important. And I encourage young people to try on different hats. I think it's a shame that kids are forced to figure out so early in their life and get on a path. So I encourage kids to do internships, to work, to talk to people who are doing things that they think are interesting, because most kids are intimidated about approaching you, for example, and saying, Holly, you've done some swerving. Tell me about what you're doing, and having those conversations in high school and in college before you commit to something. But I think kids feel the pressure to have to know what they're going to be.
It's such a young age.
Exactly.
You're 16, 17, 18 when you're making these big life decisions.
Yeah. In one of the first lines in the first chapter is a question that I hate the most that we ask children is, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if growing up is finite. Yeah. As if you get to a place and at some point that's the end. And that's sort of one of our big dilemmas, that we ask kids so early to figure out who you're going to be at 5 and 7 and 10 and even 20 years old. So I do encourage young people to be open to the swerve and don't beat themselves up if they feel they've maybe not made the right first choice, because life, Holly, is long. And as you know, we can have many lives within a life. We are always evolving. That is why I called the book Becoming. This notion that we ever stop evolving is just wrong. So I think, my parents taught me more information is better. Giving young people the truth helps them in the long run. So I felt like I had to share my truth, and it wasn't a difficult thing for me to share. Anybody who meets me, I would have the same conversation. So I couldn't see not sharing with the world what I would share with anyone who I was trying to help.
What would you say to young women and to young men about the importance of seeking out strong mentors, and what did they mean to you?
Oh my goodness. You don't do anything alone. And I think a lot of young people think that they look at people like us and think you just magically appeared, you became, and there you are. And it's like, no, I always looked ahead of me at the women primarily who were doing the things that I wanted to do. I talk a lot about, Valerie Jarrett, for example, who has worked in our administration, but I met her very early on before Barack and I even got married. And she, for me, was one of the first examples of a strong professional woman who was a single parent, who was doing a phenomenal job as a mother and was just a boss at work. And watching her balance that and not losing herself in either role. I talk about how I'd sit in a meeting with her and she'd be in the midst of, business leaders sitting around the table, the mayor on the phone, and her secretary would call and say her daughter had just got home from school and wanted to talk. And she turned herself off in a second because she said, I will always make time for my daughter, So I saw how important it was that even in the height of your career, putting your kids first was important. And that helped me sort of think about how I wanted the White House experience to feel for my daughters. That's why we, in so many instances, we would stop our day, no matter what was going on, and give that time to the kids because we wanted them to feel like they were at the center of everything, even when their mom and dad were some of the most powerful people in the world. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't have known that example was possible had I not looked ahead at the women who were my mentors. I think a lot of women, we're afraid to just put our cards on the table and say, this is what I'm worth. This is what I need to make this happen. I can do this. But if you don't, these are my top 3 things. I would have never had the courage to do it. And I think many women sit on their talents and their gifts because they're afraid to make that ask. Sometimes we're too polite in the professional world. And many women don't have the luxury or the leverage to make the kind of demands
You have to practice who you want to be. You don't wake up one morning and you're suddenly who you think you want to be. You have to put some energy into it. So if you want to be an honest person, you have to be an honest person every day, even starting at 3 and 4 and 5, right? If you're going to be a hard work doesn't just appear. You have to practice hard work. You have to practice effort. And I also encourage them, try to help them understand that good things don't come easy. With that effort, that's where you grow. That's where growth, some of the best times in my life when I've grown, it's when I've done something hard, when I've overcome a fear. You don't realize that when you're doing it, but when you come out on the other side, you realize, wow, I've really stepped up. So I push my girls, but more importantly, I love them a lot. And that's what I feel for all of you. I want you guys to feel that in your lives so that you can be excellent. Because other people told me that I might not be able to do well in school for whatever reason. I was always a good student. I worked hard, but I thought there was some magic that happened that made you really, I didn't know that it was just plain old hard work. So there were periods of doubt for sure. I think I have doubts today. Doubts don't go away. You just learn how to deal with them. You start knowing yourself and you become more confident. The more successes you have, the more chances you take. You don't let the failures or the stumbles define you. You know, everybody falls every now and then. Some people fall a lot. And what I realize is that we have long lives if we're healthy and we do what we're supposed to do. I'm 47 years old. So think about it. Whatever mistake I made when I was 13, who cares? So think about life as a long trajectory. But at the same time, you don't want to make huge mistakes, because when you're young, making big mistakes can last forever, right? So you want to choose wisely. But the stumbles, the lessons learned, that's part of life that makes you grow. But I came to know that. I didn't know that when I was your age. I thought every mistake was the end of the world. I'll never get into school. I'll never be, of course, we all feel that way. But just continue to work, put the effort in. And I think that has been some of what's helped me being First Lady. First of all, is knowing who you are and being confident in yourself, because there'll be, Clarissa, what did you say? Pushing beyond other people's labels of you, right? That's a big part. That's what we do to each other all the time. We don't even know each other, and we already determine from one glance, meeting, one line, one word, one phrase, this is who you are. So you have to know who you are before that. And you live that reality, and you keep living it out no matter what. And if you're have good character and good intentions, that ultimately shines through. But in the end, it's hard work. And I like to work hard, and I like to do good things. And you practice that now. And believe it or not, I didn't know it. It prepared me to be the First Lady of the United States. I didn't know. I guess I'm doing okay. But you know what? Every day we just get up and keep doing what we think is the right thing. Read, write, read. If the president were here, one of his greatest strengths is reading. That's one of the reasons why he's a good communicator, why he's such a good writer. He's a voracious reader. So we're trying to get our girls, no matter what, to love reading and to challenge themselves with what they read, not just read the gossip books, but push themselves beyond and do things that maybe they wouldn't do. So I would encourage you all to read, just keep reading. And writing is another skill. It's practice. The more you write, the better you get. Drafts. Our kids are learning. The first draft means nothing. You're going to do 7, 10 drafts. That's writing. It's not failure. It's not the teacher not liking you because it's all marked up in red. When you get to be a good writer, you mark your own stuff in red. And you rewrite, and you rewrite, and you rewrite. That's what writing is. And if you come out with those skills, and then you're confident, and you can articulate, and you can stand up straight and look anybody in the eye and say, this is who I am, it's a pleasure to meet you. That's one of the things we try to do with our mentoring program with young girls. My message to them is, if you can walk into the White House and meet the First Lady and say, my name is, how are you, and look me in the eye, then there's nothing you can't do. That's why it's important. If you guys walked here, are sitting here in front of all these people, standing tall, asking questions, using your voice, you have to practice that. These arenas just show up again and again, and then you just get used to it. The nerves go away, and you start relaxing into your own abilities. But it's practice. When you are struggling and you start thinking about giving up, I want you to remember something that my husband and I have talked about since we first started this journey nearly a decade ago. Something that has carried us through every moment in this White House and every moment of our lives. And that is the power of hope. The belief that something better is always possible if you're willing to work for it and fight for it.
It is our fundamental belief in the power of hope that has allowed us to rise above the voices of doubt and division, of anger and fear that we have faced in our own lives and in the life of this country. Our hope that if we work hard enough and believe in ourselves, then we can be whatever we dream, regardless of the limitations that others may place on us. The hope that when people see us for who we truly are, maybe, just maybe, they too will be inspired to rise to their best possible selves. Shoot, it's the hope of my folks like my dad. Got up every day, do his job at the city water plant. The hope that one day his kids would go to college and have opportunities he never dreamed of. That's the kind of hope that every single one of us, politicians, parents, preachers, all of us, need to be providing for our young people. Because that is what moves this country forward every single day. Our hope for the future and the hard work that hope inspires. I want our young people to know that they matter, that they belong. So don't be afraid. You hear me? Young people, don't be afraid. Be focused. Be determined. Be hopeful. Be empowered. Empower yourselves with a good education. Then get out there and use that education to build a country worthy of your boundless promise. Lead by example with hope, never fear.